Hi, good morning, and this is your favorite Kingdom channel. Today, I have a burden to continue the series of broadcasts that I started on the nation of Nigeria. So, this is the part two of this broadcast on the old and new Nigeria. Today, by the grace of God, I will be sharing about the wrong foundations in the birth of Nigeria as a republic. The wrong foundations in the birth of Nigeria. First of all, I want us to know that the country called the Republic of Nigeria today is um, a collection or amalgamation of several kingdoms and entities that has, you know, their sovereignty. For example, we have the Hausa kingdoms, that flourished from the 10th century to early 19th century before uh, the jihad war that happened in Nigeria. Now, the Hausa kingdoms, they are majorly Hausa speaking uh, ethnic group. And in northern Nigeria, we have some states that are originally Hausa speaking states. In history, they call them the Hausa Bokwe. They are um, Gobri in Sokoto states. We have Kano and Rano in Kano states. We have Daura and Katsina now in the modern Katsina state. We also have Zaria, which they also call them Zazao, in Kaduna State. And we have Biram. So these are the seven originally Hausa states called Hausa Bokwe. And each of these states, they are independent. They have their rulers called the Sariki. The Sariki, ruled, you know, each state alongside with um, local chiefs and then local councils. And each of them also have their military. They have their military, they control their economy, the trading, the transatlantic trade, you know, and the economy of the region. Again, if you go to the northeastern part of the nation, we have the Kanem Bornu Empire. The Kanem Bornu Empire, okay, was an empire that was built by the Kanuri people. So the dominant language in this empire is the Kanuri language. You know, we find them in states like Yobe State, part of Adamawa State, and Borno State in particular. The Kanem Borno Empire existed from 9th century from the 9th century. In fact, Islam um, came into this empire in the 11th century, and the leader of that empire then, the Mai of the Bonu Empire, accepted Islam, and Islam was even made the state religion from then till now. So we have the Kanem Bonu Empire that flourished from the 9th century until the 18th century, before the British Empire, before the British officials, you know, uh, conquered that territory. So this Bono Empire, they have a leader or a king called the Mai of Bono, now referred to as the Al Kanemi, of Bono State. They have their military. Okay, they have their military. They control their economy. They control the transatlantic trade within their region. So these are a centralized system of government, just like the Hausa kingdoms. Now again, if we move down to the north central part of Nigeria, which some people call them the Middle Belt. Now, the Middle Belt part of Nigeria uh, consists of hundreds of uh, ethnic and linguistic people. So it has different independent kingdoms. So the Middle Belt people is not a single or a centralized system of government. In fact, in the Middle Belt, we have a lot of uh, nations and ethnic peoples that have their own culture, their language, their tradition, and their religion. For example, we have the Birom in Plateau State. We have the Jukuns in Taraba State. We have the Ibiras in Kogi State. We have the TV and Idoma in Benue State. We have the Nupes in Niger State. We have the Igalas, we have the Ibiras, and so many other tribes, And we have some kingdoms like the Igala kingdom, okay, that have their king too. But most of the ethnic groups in the Middle Belt region, they don't have a centralized government like the Hausa kingdoms and the Bono Empire. Most of them, have village chiefs, village elders that ruled their communities. Now, moving down to the south, the western part of Nigeria, before the colonization of Nigeria as a country, we have the Oyo Empire, one of the largest, and and you know flourished empire in West Africa. The Oyo Empire existed, around the 9th century, but flourished between the 14th and then 18th century. The Oyo Empire was established by the Yoruba people in the western parts of Nigeria, and it controlled, all the Yoruba-speaking states. The empire flourished because It has a centralized government. The leader of the Oyo Empire is called the Alaafin of Oyo, and his palace was at Oyo Ile in Oyo State. Now, the empire ruled alongside with uh, with council of elders and council of chiefs in every village, in every community. And this council of chiefs, they advise the Alaafin of Oyo, and they can also dethrone the king uh, if the king, you know, is ruling in such a way that can bring down the empire. And also, the leader of the Oyo Empire also ruled alongside with a particular um, organization called the Ogboni community. They give spiritual, backup to the leadership of the Oyo Empire. Now again, if we go to the eastern part of the nation, we have the major people there is the Igbo. We have the Igbo people that that have been in existence since the ninth century. Now, the system of government among the Igbo people is almost close to the one among the Middle Belt people. The Igbo people ruled, themselves by a decentralized system of government. There is no single kingdom that controls or governs the entire territory of the Igbo people. You know, the Igbo people they have leaders that ruled over themselves in villages and community. We have a council of elders, you know, council of chiefs, community leaders that take decisions in each community. And the way the Igbo leadership is structured, for you to become part of um, the leadership or the council of elder in any community, it comes by merit. You must merit it. It comes by merit and by what you have achieved. Now, and lastly, now moving down to the south people, which we refer to as the Niger Delta, geopolitical zone of the country. We also have um, hundreds of ethnic tribes scattered uh, in the Niger Delta region. We have the Ijaw people, we have the Efik and Ibibio, in Cross River states. We have the Calabaris. Now, if you go to River states, we have the Ikweres. We have the Ikweres. If you go to Delta states, we have the Isekiri. We have the Urobo people. If you go to Bayelsa, they have their own ethnic people. And in the Niger Delta region, we have a lot of kingdoms like the Benin Kingdom, you know, that was established by the Benin people. We have the Brass Kingdom. We have the Boni Kingdom, and other kingdoms that flourished in the Niger Delta region. We have the Wari Kingdom. We have the Opobo Kingdom and other kingdoms. Now, so we can see that before Nigeria became a republic, there were several kingdoms that have their sovereignty, and they were managing their region economically, politically, and uh, insecurity, and they were doing well. Now, the wrong foundations of Nigeria actually started from 1804, and we all know what happened in 1804 is now in history. A certain man called Utmada Fodio, who was a Fulani scholar, teacher, and reformer, that lived in Sokoto State, you know, he began to have conflicts with the Sariki of Gobri, you know, Gobri Kingdom in Sokoto State, and he was able to defeat uh, the Sariki of Gobri Kingdom. He took over that kingdom, and from there, he was waging jihad on every kingdom and community in northern Nigeria. So within the space of 4 years, he overpowered and conquered all the Hausa uh, kingdoms, all the Hausa states, Kano State, Kaduna State, Jigawa State, all the states in the northwestern part of Nigeria, that were ruled by Sariki, were replaced with emirs. Because when Uthman Fodio, defeated the Hausa kingdoms, the reform he brought was not just religious reform; it was both political and religious. So he ruled over the Hausa territory alongside, with his family members, especially his brother, you know, uh, especially with his brother Abdullah Danfodio and with his son, Mohammed Bello. And that's why till today, anywhere the Fulani Caliphate conquer, they establish an emir there and they try to take over the political structure of that community. That's one of the origin or the genesis of the insecurity that Nigeria is facing today. So it starts from 1804. 1804. But we thank God the incursion of the jihad was stopped, at the Middle Belt, especially in Benue State, when the armies of the Sokoto Caliphate made an attempt to defeat and to conquer the people of the Middle Belt. But thank God that they were defeated by the TV and some other ethnic groups in the Middle Belt. They also made an attempt even to defeat the Yoruba kingdom at the time, but their armies were defeated in Oshobo town, in the southwest, in the 19th century. Now, another wrong foundation was in 1914. But before we talk about 1914, we need to understand what happened before the 1914 amalgamation of the southern and northern protectorates of Nigeria. Now, before 1914, there was a British man in Nigeria who was a businessman. His name was George Goldie. George Goldie established UAC, United African Company, in Nigeria. Okay, and he was controlling and managing the trade and a lot of resources within the country among different kingdoms. Now, when the Queen of England discovered him, in fact, the Queen of England gave him a royal charter in 1886 just to recognize his prominence. And the Queen of England also assisted him with military officers, to collect taxes from kingdoms and and sovereignties within the country. But in 1900, the British Kingdom approached him and they decided to buy the United Africa Company from him, and it was sold. The company was sold to the British Empire for $875,000. So this happened before the 1914 amalgamation, and the buying of this company was like a transfer of administrative trading rights from um, from George Goldie to the British officials. And the British government, they did this because they wanted the control of the resources in Nigeria. It was done for exploitative purpose. So this was actually done before the 1914 amalgamation. So the 1914 amalgamation was an idea of the British government for easy and smooth run administration of their colonial agenda over Nigeria. And in history, we all know the amalgamation was done by Frederick Lord Lugard, and it was his wife, Flora Shaw, that named the country Nigeria, a land from the Niger area. So 1914, it was a wrong foundation because the representatives from various kingdoms and sovereignties that made up the country, they were not carried along. There was no debate. There was no agreement. There was no debate. There was no agreement. So it was like a forced marriage, even though God allowed it. Again, another wrong foundation was in 1960. Okay, the British government, they ruled over Nigeria from 1914 to 1960. That's a period of 46 years. And during that 46 years, about 10 governor generals from the British Kingdom governed the affairs of the country. But in 1960, because of the fight and clamor for independence, the military government had no choice, just like as it happened, in USA in 1883. In 1960, the British government willingly, handed over the country to the owners of the land. So Nigeria was given independence on October 1st, 1960. But before that date, the military government, oversee the parliamentary election that brought in the elected officials on October 1st, 1960. And in the archive of history, the military government deliberately manipulated the results of that parliamentary election to favor the Sokoto Caliphate. And that was how Tafawa Balewa, a Fulani man, became the first prime minister of the Republic of Nigeria. So in 1960, as a result of the manipulation of the election results in the parliament, Tafawa Balewa became the prime minister of Nigeria, and Obafemi Awolowo became the premier of the Western region. Ahmadu Bello became the premier of the Northern region, and Dr. Michael Okpara became the premier of the Eastern region. So another wrong foundation was laid in 1960 because there was manipulation of election results. So the Nigeria we are seeing today, the foundation or the genesis of our problem did not start in 1999. The Bible says, if the foundations is destroyed, what can the righteous do? So for us to have a new Nigeria, we must understand where we are coming from. We must understand the wrong foundations that was laid in the country. We must understand what led to the formation of this present old Nigeria. Now, the 1960, that 1959, election that brought in those leaders in 1960 was to be for 4 years. So in 1964, another election was held. And in that election, Tafawa Balewa still became the prime minister. He defeated Obafemi Awolowo in that contest. And Ladoke Akintola, became the premier of the Western region. Ahmadu Bello still remained the premier of the Northern region, and Dr. Michael Okpara also retained his seat as the premier of Eastern region. But in Western region, because Obafemi Awolowo contested, the presidential seat with Tafawa Balewa, and he lost the election. So now, because of that, there was a crisis that happened in the Western region in 1965, which in history we call Operation Wettier. Obafemi Awolowo wanted to return back as the premier of Western region because he had lost at the national level. So that resulted to a crisis in the Western, and it was a serious crisis. There was killings, burning of houses, which affected the national security. Now, that happened, and because of that and other factors like corruption within the presidency from the West, from the rulership of the prime minister, and also instability within various political parties. Another wrong foundation was laid in 1966. 1966. There was a coup d'etat in 1966. 1966. And during this coup, The the premier of northern region, Amadu Bello, was killed. The premier of western region, Ladoke Akintola, was killed. Um, the prime minister of the country, Tafawa Balewa, was killed. But Dr. Michael Okpara, the premier of the eastern region, um, survived that coup d'etat. Now, the coup um, did not succeed in the entire country, and because of that, the military leadership had no option but to step in order to bring stability to the country. And the most senior officer in the military leadership, assumed the leader of the nation, and that is General Aguiyi Ironsi. So General Aguiyi Ironsi became the first head of state, you know, on 15th of January 1966. Now, when he became the head of state, he suspended the 1963 uh, Republican Constitution, and he ruled with two major decrees. And these two major decrees, up till now, is one of the wrong foundations that Nigeria as a country is facing. General Aguiyi Ironsi, came with decree number 1 of 1966, and this decree suspended part of the 1963 Constitution and transferred the executive and judicial, powers to the federal military governments. The second decree was called the Decree number 34 of 1966. This decree number 34 abolished the federal system of government and replaced it with a unitary system of government. And up till now, even the present 1999 constitution as amended, still reflects the error that was done in 1966 by General Aguiyi Ironsi. This is 2026, 60 years, later. The time is arrived for a new Nigeria. The time is arrived for a new Nigeria. So out of, in fact, the most terrible foundational error was made in 1966 by General Aguiyi Ironsi, because before 1966, before that coup, the parliamentary system that Nigeria, was running was very similar to the system of government in United Kingdom. In United Kingdom, we have England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Each country, is independent. England, Wales, Northern Ireland. Each of them, they control their economy, they control their security, they control their resources, they control their policing, their independence. And that was what Nigeria, actually, that was the system Nigeria, ran from 1960 to 1966. At least in the Western region, and that was why in the Western region there was great and gradual developments, by Obafemi Awolowo, Because he was independent, he was able to implement some policies like free education, free health services, and a lot of developments that made Southwest, you know, to grow rapidly. That was the best system of government for Nigeria. So what we are facing Nigeria today, the in fact the wrong foundation was laid in 1960, and up till now we are still suffering from that wrong foundation. And of course, we all know everything is in history. Because of that coup in 1960, there was a counter coup in 1967, which led to a civil war of 3 years from 1967 to 1970. A civil war between the Igbo people and the Nigerian governments. And what Nigeria is facing today is similar to what happened in 1967 to 1970. If a proper restructuring of the nation is not carried out, another civil war is around the corner. A civil war that may likely happen if Nigerian government refuse to do the right thing. A civil war between the Fulani people and the rest of the ethnic people in Nigeria. Of course, another wrong foundation was laid in 1973. In 1973, NSCIA, that's Nigerian Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs, they just woke up and made Sultan of Sokoto as the head without consulting representatives from other regions. And in that same 1973, that was the beginning of prosperity gospel and building of empires and denominations among the church in Nigeria. Today, every denomination want to have an empire built along Lagos-Ibadan Express Road. This is part of the wrong foundations that was laid in Nigeria. 1973 was the beginning of prosperity gospel. The gospel that the Lord Jesus came to preach, it was a kingdom gospel, not a prosperity gospel. Another wrong foundation was laid in 1977. 1977 Festac, during the tenure of General Olusegun Obasanjo as head of state. He organized Festival of Arts and Culture, where people were invited from various countries and they came with their idols. It was, a festival of art and culture. But to me, it was like a festival, a gathering and a festival of idols from various countries and continents. And spiritually, it also laid a wrong foundation for the new nation. Another wrong foundation was laid in 1986. In 1986, during the leadership of General Badamusa Ibrahim Babangida as the head of state, General Babangida, without consulting with representatives from the 6 regions of the country, he you know, uh, single-handedly registered Nigeria as a full member of OIC, Organization of Islamic Conference. And you know, you know, some historians reported that in that year, $21 billion, was removed from the federation accounts and given to OIC. And from that 1986 till now, that this year we make it 40 years. 2026 we make it 40 years that Nigeria became a full member of Organization of Islamic Conference. Is indirectly saying Nigeria is an Islamic republic. That's the indirect implication. For 40 years, Nigeria has been paying annual dues or annual contribution. Every country that is a member of this organization, there is an amount they pay every year to this organization, OIC. And OIC is one of the organizations that is sponsoring and implementing jihad, all over the world. They have their ways of promoting Islam through jihad. These are wrong foundations. So the insecurity we are facing in Nigeria today, it did not start from 1999. It started a long time ago. And for us to address this issue, we need to know, our foundation. We need to know the origin of our problem before we can begin to provide solution. So 1986 was, in 1986, another wrong foundation was laid in Nigeria. Nigeria country becoming a full member of OIC, Organization of Islamic Conference. Another wrong foundation was laid in 1999. In 1999, Nigerians celebrated across the country because it was a return from the military government to civilian government. That was the beginning of the Fourth Republic. But in the midst of the celebration, there was a wrong foundation. The 1999 Constitution, that was handed over to the president that won the 1999 election. That Constitution had a lot of foundational errors, foundational flaws. And that is why we're having a problem in the country as today. Now, briefly, let me quickly just summarize the content of the 1999 Constitution and why there is a need for a brand new constitution. Now, the 1999 Constitution, contains 68 items. And out of these 68 items, these 68 items is divided into 3 lists. We have what we call the exclusive list, which only the federal government and the National Assembly has power to amend it, and um, to regulate it. Exclusive list. Out of the 68 items, 46 are inside the exclusive list, which is under, or which is in the control of only the federal government at the center and National Assembly. And the 48 the 48 list, the 46 contents of this exclusive list, contains, let me say, 99% of the sovereignty of a region. For example, I'll just pick the important ones: the banks, the aviation and airports, census and registration of births, defense, military and national defense. These are what we have in the exclusive list. Police and other federal security services, railways, customs and duties, minerals and resources, and all other important lists. But I just pick out this one because this is what is affecting the growth of the country today. The economy of the nation, the security, defense, national police, the national army is being controlled by the federal government alone. Minerals and mines, minerals and resources, even generation of power is under the exclusive list. Now let me give us, you know, uh, maybe 2 or 3 setbacks of this foundational error. When General Muhammadu Buhari was head of state between 1983 and 1985, Jakande was the uh, military governor of Lagos State. Jakande had a vision to build railway, standard railway in Lagos State as at 1984. And that Lagos State had the money, had the resources, but Buhari, who was the head of state, did not allow that development. He stopped it. Why? Because railway is actually under the exclusive list. The federal government has the power to determine, uh, how, where, and when a particular region can have such infrastructure. Another example, when President Tinubu was the governor of Lagos State from 1999 to 2007, he had a vision to establish independent power plants in Lagos State and generate, their own power. I think he even went ahead. He built some power plants, but because of the policy of the constitution, if any state build a power plant, you cannot generate power within your state by yourself. Any power you generate must first be added to the national grid. So because of that, Tinubu had to stop that vision. So there is the kind of constitution we run is affecting development in various states and regions. The best government that Nigeria had ever witnessed was between 1960 and 1966, because the regional powers, the premier of each region, could decide what they wanted to do. They had the power to implement policies within their region without uh, without having any issue from the federal government. Now, so we have the exclusive list, we have the concurrent list. The concurrent list is both regulated by both federal and state governments. And lastly, we have the residual matters. The residual matters, they are petty matters that are regulated by only the state governments. And let's look at what is in residual matters. We have the local government administration, chieftaincy and traditional institution, establishment and regulation of local markets, motor parks and garages, maintenance and construction of local roads, town planning and physical development, land matters, which is still subject to Land Use Act and federal laws, local government taxation and rates, cultural matters, state and local government matters, state level education matters, and state health services. So we can see that with the kind of 1999 constitution as amended, the Nigerian government is running with, the governors of the 36 states, the governors of the 36 states of the federation, they have limited power in their states. They don't have control over the security. The commissioner of police in each state, are under the inspector general of police, and the IG can only take order from the president of the country, not from the governor of any state. So when there is an attack, for example, now in Osun State, when there is a Boko Haram attack or there is a banditry attack, the governor cannot do anything except the president gives order. With this kind of structure, Nigeria will remain like this. With this kind of structure, Nigeria cannot, achieve our goals. Nigeria will remain underdeveloped. Nigeria will remain a third world country if we continue to use this 1999 constitution as amended. Secondly, in the content of 1999 constitution, the section 10 says Nigeria Republic is a secular state. But within the same constitution, the people that drafted the constitution, because the constitution was actually the constitution was drafted by the head of state that handed over to President Olusegun Obasanjo, and that is General Abubakar. Now, he was the one that spearheaded, the writing of the 1999 Constitution. Within the Constitution, there are areas that talk about Sharia law. Sharia is mentioned 73 times in the Nigeria Constitution. Islam is mentioned 28 times in the Nigeria Constitution. The word Muslim is mentioned 10 times in the Nigerian Constitution. And in the same Constitution, there is no single mention of Christianity. There is no single mention of Christian. There is no single mention of Bible. no single mention of the church, no single mention of ATR, other um, Africa traditional religion. Nigeria is Nigeria an Islamic republic? Because by the content of the Nigerian constitution, anyone that picks the book and read can just conclude that the Republic of Nigeria is an Islamic constitution, because the Sharia laws or the laws of Sharia was written in our constitution. And in the same constitution, there is no clause for referendum. This constitution has put us in bondage, for God's sake. And no wonder in early 2000, the 12 core northern states, the states from the northeastern part of Nigeria and the state of northwestern part of Nigeria, led by Zamfara state, they went ahead and adopted the Sharia laws. The Sharia laws of the 1999 constitution. They went ahead and implemented it. And all the 12 core northern states today has become an Islamic state because they operate by the Sharia law. So, as of today, in Nigeria, like the leadership of this country is battling with secularism and Sharia law. Secularism and Sharia law. And it's really a tug of war. It's a tussle. Before I talk about the last wrong foundation, from my own point of view, the time has come for a new Nigeria to emerge. And from my own point of view, I am not advocating for the breakup of the country. And I don't believe in that. I am not advocating for Nigeria to break up. But for Nigeria to still remain one, be united, and prosper as a country, there is need for a brand new constitution. Well, the present president of the country, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is making some bold attempts to restructure the 1999 constitution as amended. Well, he has sent the bill for state policing, to the National Assembly, and it has been accepted. Well, I also I heard of a 42 state restructuring bill that is flying on the internet, saying um, a bill that will also recognize regional governments, regional control, apart from the federal, the state, and the local government. That bill is bringing 6 geopolitical regions, and the bill is proposing a total of 42 states from the present 36. Well, these are both steps, but for me, this cannot solve the issue of insecurity, ethnicity, and bad leadership that is currently facing the country. Why? The reason is because it will be very difficult to remove the Sharia laws from the 1999 Nigeria's constitution as amended. It will be very difficult because the northern part of Nigeria will not agree. And one of the major factor that is fueling the issue of insecurity by various groups like Boko Haram, ISWAP, ISIS, banditry, and a lot of terrorist groups that is springing up on daily basis is because of the loophole in the 1999 constitution as amended. There is room for Sharia. There is room for Sharia law to be implemented in our constitution. So until this is addressed, whatever restructuring that we are doing, we are only extending the time bomb that is already set over the country. In my own opinion, Nigeria needs a brand new constitution. And we are not the only one that have been in this situation before. Let me take us back to United States of America. When USA got our independence in 1776, now from 1783 to 1789, a period of 6 years, USA was governed by a document called the Articles of Confederation. Now, the leaders of the 13 states of USA then, they discovered that article has a lot of foundational errors and was not adequate enough, to oversee the leadership of USA. So what happened? In 1887, a constitutional convention was held in USA, and the delegates, when they came together, they discovered that the Articles of Confederation could not be amended, could not be changed. It was difficult for them to amend it or to change it. And they now unanimously they agreed that an entire new US Constitution needed to be created. And it took the delegates 2 years, from 1787 to 1789, to produce a brand new constitution for USA. And that was how they have their brand new constitution in 1789. In 1789. And that was the constitution, on which George Washington was elected the first president of USA. So if USA, the president want power, for them to have stability in their country, they came together and they agreed. They formed a brand new constitution. In my own opinion, Nigeria as a country has gotten to that stage. For Nigeria to remain one and to have stability, Nigeria needs a brand new constitution. A brand new constitution where delegates and representatives from all the 6 geopolitical regions, delegates from all, several kingdoms and sovereignties, from all ethnic groups, will agree and a new constitution will be formed. I want to say that the time has come for a new Nigeria. This is year 2026, exactly 60 years after 1966. when that wrong foundation was laid. That wrong foundation of abolishing the regional system of government and replacing it with a unitary system of government that has made all our states to be lazy, to be handicapped, and to be totally dependent upon the center for survival. The time has come for a new Nigeria. The time has come for a new Nigeria. And it's going to happen very soon. The time has come for a new Nigeria. Thank you for this broadcast. Thank you so much for this broadcast. Thank you for listening. This is just the part 2. Watch out for the part 3 of the broadcast on old and new Nigeria. Thank you and God bless you.